most notorious attempt to construct a knowable Nat Turner. William Styron's best-selling 1967 novel, The Confessions of Nat Turner, and its reception. Addressing Styron's interpretive trajectory and the controversies to which it led, the prologue asks the question, what is the past? The prologue asks this question because it is precisely the question that Styron's book provoked. At the time of its publication, and for years following, Styron's Confessions was simultaneously condemned for traducing the historical Nat Turner and defended as a book faithful in all essentials to the past on which it ostensibly drew. The quarrel pitted African-American intellectuals against Styron himself and against contemporary white historians and others sympathetic to his endeavors. I am critical of Styron's defenders, but my purpose is less to dwell on them than to employ his book and the debates by which it was accompanied as an occasion for entry on concerns of my own, the desires and responsibilities of authorship, and in particular, the meaning of history. On both counts, one can learn a great deal from Styron's Confessions, from the book's errors of judgment, and from the failure of its central ambition. The errors are less important than the failure. Styron's errors were not few, but they were shallow. They were the errors of a novelist who demanded an imaginative right to take possession of his subject and do as his artistic fancy dictated, no matter the consequences. What resulted was irresponsible, even selfish. But William Styron was hardly the first white man to claim that Nat Turner was his property. Styron's ambition, however, was deep and orthogonal to his demand that he be accorded a fiction writer's license. It was to escape altogether the fictive terrain of the novel for the profundity of what he called a meditation on history. Here was no facile creation of some artificially scripted persona. Here was a serious attempt to recreate a past, to stand by that recreation as a philosophically valid exercise, and to propose that the exercise of recreation was of moral significance to Styron's own present. Here was an intimation that Styron indeed wished to assume responsibility for what he had done because he believed in what he had done. But Styron was never able to explain what his meditation on history actually meant. Had he managed to state his ambition coherently, his errors would have been less jarring, more easily forgiven, his book less divisive. In the Matter of Nat Turner also attempts a meditation on history. But unlike William Styron, I am a historian. This means I believe that an actual existing Nat Turner is accessible in remnants or traces that one must attempt to comprehend. A Turner with whom it is possible to communicate if one listens for him and to him with all the powers one can muster. This Nat Turner is something other than the plaything of an authorial imagination. It is a revenant once was, a living on, an uncontained remainder that possesses recognizability, fragments of whose truth are recoverable. Having chosen this Turner as my subject, it is my responsibility to pursue my attempt at recognition of him respectfully, but also in my own way, believing that using the tools of my particular trade as imaginatively as I can is the only possible route to some degree of success. That work of recovery and recognition comprises the bulk of this book. It appears in the relatively conventional form, for a historian, of a series of narratives that present empirical evidence and offer arguments about the meaning of that evidence. The listener will find a synoptic guide in the remainder of this preface, but the book as a whole is conceived less conventionally.